Welcome back to my Motorsport Manager and Fire Fantasy 20 mod playthrough. We head into round 6 in Guildford with momentum, after Garcia's breakout win in Singapore. The practice session went smoothly and we built up level 2 knowledge on race trim and super softs. As for the random grid, Garcia got lucky again and started on P2, and was set up for a repeat performance. While Aberdeen started in P22 and had plenty of room to improve. Lights out and Garcia got a terrible start to the race. She immediately dropped several positions and got eaten up by the crowd, while Aberdeen didn't fare much better. This is despite me urging them to push. Both drivers were able to keep an aggressive pace until lap 4, when the tyres started to run hot. Garcia was only able to recover up to P5, however, Aberdeen was having the drive of his life and gained 13 positions, up to P9. A lap later, the unluckiest girl in the series, Sophia Florsch, got hit in yet another race, this time by Vesti, who came away with no penalty. Then a lap after that, Joe locked up at turn 6, which caused Zellers to collide into him. No penalty was served for the incident. Not long after, it looked like there was going to be some light rain, but enough to possibly justify a switch to intermediates. Normally I'd just risk a bit of the wet, on slick tyres, but after Aberdeen's unexpected crash in Singapore, I was feeling a little paranoid, so I called in both drivers to switch tyres. Garcia was 13 seconds behind the race leader when she dove into the pits, so hopefully that gap doesn't grow too much when we switch back. Meanwhile, our favourite driver Ferrucci caused yet another collision at the final turn and hit Caldwell. Though it was the American driver that lost the most in the scuffle, and had to pit for an immediate tyre change. On lap 10, almost the entire field pitted in for a tyre change, though only half of them switched to intermediates. The top 2 cars didn't even bother and stayed out during the rain spell. It was a risky call, but the track dried up by lap 13 and everyone else was forced to switch back to slicks. We minimized risk for our drivers, but both of them lost positions due to the strategy adjustment. Garcia's gap to the leader grew by half a minute, to 50 seconds, so now our chances of fighting for a win are pretty much gone. On lap 20, Schumacher thinks he's at home playing Forza as he cuts through the entirety of turn 2. He gained 2 positions for free and came away without a penalty. No idea what the stewards were thinking. Meanwhile, our drivers recovered positions as Garcia was in P7 and Aberdeen was in P14. The rain started to come down again on lap 27, but nothing worth changing the tyres for. A couple laps later, Aberdeen's brakes degraded since we've been pushing him so hard, so we told him to go easy for the rest of the race. We haven't been able to fight for positions for a long time, but we got lucky on the second last lap as Hyman was forced to pit late, and Garcia gained a free position up to P6. She held that position until the checkered flag, while Aberdeen finished in P15. In hindsight, we should have brought in Aberdeen for repairs and fresh tyres towards the end of the race. There was no way he was in contention for a points finish, but we could have had him try to gain points by getting the fastest lap. Brawn GP dominated Guildford as their drivers, Ilott and Krone, took P1 and P2 respectively. Ferrucci didn't tank his car during his earlier collision and rounded out the podium for Penske. Ilott also shot up in the Drivers' Championship, up to P4, and same goes for his team, who shot up to P2 in the Constructors. Meanwhile in F1, Ferrari locked out another GP as Vettel took P1 and Leclerc took P2. Hamilton rounded out the podium in P3, and because Verstappen crashed, Hamilton retook the lead in the Drivers' Championship.
Max Verstappen is out of this race and out of the car as well.
Mercedes must have been feeling the heat as Ferrari were catching up in the Constructors, because the Silver Arrows dominated Yokohama. Hamilton took P1, Bottas took P2, and Vettel took P3. The Germans showing they've still got a lot of fight left in them for the season. Ahead of our next race, MTV Sports are apparently running an expose on the working conditions over at Simtech, and they'd like to interview our mechanics as a reference point. There wouldn't be any positive outcome for us either way, but it would make a big dent in Simtech's bottom line. I don't know how deeply the game simulates the AI team's finances, which would relate to how much they can invest into their team. However, being a Canadian socialist, everyone should have a good and fair work environment, even if they don't actually exist. Another FIA rule change is proposed, which would allow teams to perform weight stripping on their cars. It's a really fun mechanic, but ultimately it's declined. Next up, we have even more sponsorship options open up for us. We sign with K-Love, a Christian music radio program, Nokia, and Qantas, an Australian airline.
$900 dues!
It's an eclectic sponsorship lineup for sure, but this is a full set of 4-star sponsors, and we've now accrued even more money than we started the season with. Our little nest egg should set us up for the next season, but we've still got 2 more races left as we head into round 7 at Tandela. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys again next week.